Good evening and welcome to the West Orange Board of Education Public Board Meeting on June 20th, 2022. Wishing everyone a happy Juneteenth. And I would like to thank all of you who are here in person and those watching from home for joining us tonight. I'd like to welcome all of our board members, Dr. Schoen, Ms. Flowers. Tonight, we do not have our student liaisons with us as they are participating in some year-end senior activities. I would like to take this opportunity, though, to thank them. They are Adrian Emapadu, Hiya Burhani, Bahram Maritu, and Rhoda Oni for their service as our student liaisons this academic year. They did an excellent job. And we wish them well in their future endeavors. Ms. Flowers, would you kindly take the roll call?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Roll call, please. Mrs. Huerta.
Here.
Mr. Rock.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson.
Here.
Vice President Rothstein.
Here.
President Tunnicliffe.
Here.
Thank you. Notice of meeting. Please take notice that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the following manner. That a written notice was sent from the office of the Secretary of the Board at 4 p.m. on January 7th, 2022. That said notice was sent by regular mail to the West Orange Township Clerk and the editors of the West Orange Chronicle and the Star Ledger. That said notice was posted in the lobby of the Administration Building of the Board of Education. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ms. Flowers. In consideration of the closed and public meeting of June 6th, 2022, do I have a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Do I have any comments? Seeing none, Ms. Flowers, would you kindly take the roll call?
Mrs. Huerta.
Yes.
Mr. Rock.
I was absent. Do I have to abstain?
No, you don't.
No?
No.
Oh, well, then yes. Wonderful minutes. Thank
Yes. Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein.
Yes.
President Tunnicliffe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Schoen, would you begin by sharing your superintendent's report?
I would be more than happy to. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Closer or we're good? Lauren? We're good? All right. Good evening, everyone. I do have three topics for discussion tonight. All important, but I'd like to begin this evening with the introduction of our recommendation for our Kelly School principal. After receiving approximately 40 applicants, creating a survey in order to receive input from the Kelly Elementary PTA, the screening and interviewing process, my recommendation for the Kelly Elementary School principalship is Mr. David Marion. Mr. Marion is completing his 18th year in public school education, all within Dover Public Schools. This includes 11 years as an elementary principal of the Academy Street School, which is a pre-K to 6 school with an enrollment of over 500 students. He also has 3 years experience as vice principal of the East Dover Elementary School and 4 years as an elementary school teacher. Mr. Marion holds a master's in educational leadership from Centenary College. So it is with a great deal of honor that I recommend for board approval this evening, Mr. Marion to serve as the leader for Kelly. So thank you for being here this evening. Fingers crossed. All right. The second report this evening is in regard to HIB. Since we last filed an HRB report, there have been 3 HIB investigations. I have reviewed the summaries of the investigation of those reported, and there is 1 confirmed and 2 non-confirmed. I concur with the findings of our anti-bullying specialist. My last report this evening, I would like to dedicate to the last couple of board meetings that we have had relative to comments that were made by parents, by students, by concerned community members at our May 23rd and our June 6th board meeting. At our May 23rd and June 6th board meeting, parents, students, and concerned community members spoke passionately about the culture and the overall environment at Liberty Middle School relative to comments that were perceived as racially motivated by some staff members. This, of course, made everyone pause, especially me as your interim superintendent, whose primary responsibility when hired was to ensure that our schools are safe, respectful environments for our staff and students. I sincerely empathize with those students who spoke from their heart about how they felt, and others whom I'm sure feel the same sentiments and did not attend our meetings. And I applaud our students who were courageous enough to come to a public board meeting to express their thoughts. I also sincerely empathize with those parents and community members who spoke at those board meetings, who entrust their children to us each day, raise their children to be good, kind people who embrace everyone for who they are and treat everyone with respect. Since our May 23rd board meeting, I have met with Liberty students who spoke at board meetings, their parents, the Liberty School faculty, some staff members at Liberty, the Liberty School Student Council representatives and their advisors, as well as team leaders at Liberty for the 7th and 8th grade classes. Everyone's voice matters. The 7th and 8th grade team leaders requested a meeting with me to discuss moving forward next year and offered a virtual meeting to 7th grade parents to elicit their input. While no 7th grade parents or guardians attended that meeting with team leaders and administration, I am grateful that our team provided that opportunity. After all meetings were complete and I was able to reflect and better understand the comments and sentiments that were described at the last board meetings, I offer the following thoughts. Were there instances where Liberty School staff members should have addressed a situation with a student in a far better manner? Absolutely, and they have been addressed. Were there instances where comments were made by Liberty School staff members that could absolutely be interpreted as racially motivated? Yes, these have been addressed. Was there a staff member who many of the principal complaints were against I could not speak to because the staff member is no longer with our district? Yes. Do students feel that there are racially motivated comments made by students to students on a daily basis at Liberty? Yes, they do. Do teachers feel that racism and other forms of social injustice exist between students on a more frequent basis? Yes, they do. Liberty's unified staff has been working collaboratively to curtail these comments through individual conversations with students, many of which have been addressed through administrative disciplinary consequences. Does the issue still exist? Yes. Do racially motivated comments, perceived acts of racism, general social injustice exist within the walls of our school district? Yes, they do. We all know it. I'm just choosing this evening to address it publicly. We all know it. So what does it mean for us, for Liberty, and for our district? What it means is that we will not hide from how our school community is perceived to be, and in some respects is. We must address it head on. We must make a change in how we operate, and to do so, we must be the change. So where do we go from here? West Orange is an outstanding community. It is our diversity that makes us unique and special. Children and their families must be celebrated for who they are. They should never be felt to feel inferior because of their race, their beliefs, or the color of their skin. There must be a bona fide commitment to embrace our community's individual and collective heritage, our diverse cultures, to understand, support, and respect for each other on a staff, student, parent, community, and district-wide level. We must improve on our efforts to create a community that supports learning across all identity groups. We must continually improve to update our curriculum so that there is access to all, and there are no limits to the experiences of our entire student body. It is time to say enough is enough in our country, in our state, and in our community of West Orange. Everyone has to be invested. At home through conversation with guidance and resources from us. At school through ongoing, meaningful sensitivity training for our staff and students. Not a one-shot program, but an investment like that of teaching math, language arts, physical education, science, and social studies, to name a few. We must make more of a concerted investment in diversity training, understanding, equity, and inclusion for all. The time is now for that investment, and it requires the commitment of all. It is not okay to make fun of a student based on the color of their skin or to call them names. It is not okay to make comments about how students look, what religion they believe in, what gender they are, what holidays they celebrate or don't celebrate. It's just not okay. Our student code of conduct and unwavering expectation of behavior and conduct in each school must reflect this. The consequences associated with not complying to our code of conduct must reflect our commitment for a change. Our education and actions towards this end must be unwavering and must be sustainable. Our programs must continue to become more and more inclusive and equitable. If we do not come together as a community and as a school community to model, educate, and enforce expectation, we will not make a change. The time is now. The Human Relations Commission is a commission under Mayor Parisi and provides our township with diversity, equity, and inclusion resources, programs, and support to make our community more inclusive. To gain an understanding of our local resources, I had the good fortune to speak with the chair, Dr. Jones, and co-chair, Ms. Gatens, last week, and they have gratefully agreed to continue their partnership with our district moving forward. Given our current climate, most immediately, and to this end, I've made the following 3 recommendations. The first recommendation is that we transfer our current Director of Accountability, Programs, and Inclusion to a role solely dedicated to that of diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. Dr. Tamika Pollins is uniquely qualified for this role and will be a wealth of resources and coordination of these efforts moving forward. Secondly, to work with all district staff to develop more sustainable, meaningful practices and protocol relative to diversity, equity, access, and inclusion moving into the 22-23 school year. And thirdly, my recommendation is to revise our calendar to close our district in the 22-23 school year to formally recognize the federal holiday on June 19th, Juneteenth. Based on board approval, Dr. Pollins and I look forward to working collaboratively to reestablish our district's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee following our pandemic period, as well as work in partnership with our community's Human Relations Commission. As mentioned at our June 6th board meeting, review of our climate survey results will be one of our first tasks. We have much to do. This is just the beginning of our efforts to provide real, effective, tangible change throughout our entire school district. In the infamous words of Maya Angelou, American poet, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. We need to do better, and I look forward to working together. Our students, staff, parents, and community deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schoen. We appreciate your presentation of your report this evening. Moving along, do we have any committee reports?
I have a couple things to report.
Sure, Ms. Huerta.
Just reiterating that happy Juneteenth to everybody. Our Facebook pages and West Orange Board of Ed page have been busy sharing end of the year activities and celebrations, as well as superintendent search updates. So keep an eye out for that. A couple of things in particular to highlight. West Orange School District is seeking alumni, calling all alumni to share your story. So if you are an alumni of West Orange High School, we would like to feature you and show off your accomplishments. So you can reach out to woboe.org/alumni. I also did have the opportunity to attend the first annual West Orange High School Short Film Festival. The theme was Different Shades of West Orange. They featured 18 short films, very touching. I cried, I laughed. It was great. The talent that we have in our school district. I also attended the West Orange High School Visual Arts Department art show. Very great work. And President Tunnicliffe's son's artwork was actually featured in there too. So I was very impressed that I knew a student. At the West Orange Scholarship Fund that honored Principal Hayden Moore, Our former superintendent, Jerry Turnoff, emceed the event. And Mayor Parisi proclaimed June 9th in West Orange as Hayden Moore Day. So that's very exciting news. And then my final report, this was discussed a little bit in our town council liaison meeting, that the New Jersey Department of Transportation has announced 19.6 million in grants for safe routes to school programs. West Orange will receive 920,000 for a safe routes to school project. So we're very much grateful for the work that went behind writing that grant and getting that to our schools. That's all for me.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Any other reports this evening?
Ms. Dunnigan.
Oh, yes,
Thank
thanks.
Town Council liaison meeting, our committee met last week on Wednesday, June 15th. As Ms. Huerta said, we discussed that grant application and some of the projects that's going to bring to help make safe routes for our children to walk to school. Another item was a continuing discussion about the use of school facilities by municipal and recreational programs to ensure that there's a smooth operation of all those uses of facilities. And lastly, we continued our discussion of recreational marijuana in town. Councilman Castellino went over the status of places that have been recommended for a license to the state, and she assured us they were all sufficiently distant from our schools, so there wouldn't be any kind of problem there.
Great, thank you so much. Other reports?
Yes, there's a quick policy report. Dr. Schoen, again, thank you for your report. I just want to draw the community's attention to District Policy 0178, which is the non-discrimination, equity, and cultural proficiency policy. To suffix what Dr. Schoen said with respect to the steps that have been taken, Section B issue, the second paragraph reads, the board recognizes that equity goes beyond meeting the letter of the law. Equity also requires proactive steps to identify and redress implicit biases and structural and institutional barriers that too often resulted in an identifiable groups of students and staff being unjustifiably or disproportionately excluded from or underrepresented in key educational program areas and sectors of the workforce. I read that to say that the beginning of that paragraph, as Dr. Schoen has demonstrated by her actions, that the policy in and of itself is the beginning. It's the de minimis. But as a board, as district leadership, this policy says explicitly that equity goes beyond meeting the letter of the law. So as an individual board member serving on the policy committee, I appreciate the actions of our superintendent and the actions of the district to redress and respond to those issues brought by families and by students. I also, very quickly, for the benefit of the community, in consultation with Vice President Rothstein, bring to the community's attention District Policy 5710, which lays out the process by which students and families may present grievances and issues to the district in a formal way so that those grievances can be addressed by the district. It's important for community members to know how to deal with these issues as they arise in a formalized way so that there can be the appropriate response by the administration and by the board. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Rothstein, did you want to?
Yes, I did just want to briefly give an update on the superintendent search. A very brief update tonight, just to note that there was a superintendent search forum for members of the public that was held on June 13th. That was an in-person meeting that happened here in this room, I believe. Oh, was the auditorium? Well, I believed incorrectly, but there you go. And then tonight, the 20th, there was a virtual version of that forum as well. So thank you to everyone who participated and shared your thoughts on the values that you're looking for in a superintendent. That's invaluable to us as we continue to conduct this search and move through the steps. The next step will be that the board will be meeting later this week to discuss the results of those forums, to learn what the values of the community are as reported, and to use that information to help us to prepare a job description. So more to come. And thank you all again.
Thank you, Vice President Rothstein. Okay. And thank you to the rest of the board members for all of your committee reports. And I would like to share my board president's report with all of you now. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about Edison Middle School. They had their academically speaking team, which came in second place at the Essex County Academically Speaking Trivia Tournament this school year. So congratulations to everyone involved with that. Their student council was also very busy throughout the year, conducting various clothing and food drives to assist community members in need. And then they also provided students with after-school in-person tutorial assistance in mathematics and language arts throughout the year. And at Edison's Honors Breakfast, where students attend as a result of their academic achievement, 183 students participated and were honored at this breakfast. So congratulations to all of those students. It's a wonderful end to the school year for them. So next we will have questions from the public on agenda items. Any community member who would like to make comments or ask questions, please come to the podium at this time. Please state your name and home address for the record and then begin your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If anyone would like to approach now, please do so. Okay. Seeing none, I think we can move on to our resolutions. Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the personnel items A1 through A9?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. A second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Ryan, you can.
Mr. Rock?
Mr. Rock, yes. Okay. Any comments or discussion? Oh, and first I'd like to actually recognize all of our retirees for their years of service to the district. Tonight, we are recognizing Ms. Teresa Granado for her 46 years of service to the district. So congratulations to Ms. Granado. Thank you so much for your service. 46 years is quite a feather in your cap. And we also want to recognize Ms. Kathy Bissett for almost 20 years of service to the district. So thank you both so much. We wish you well in your retirement. And as my predecessor would say, welcome to the Every Day is Saturday Club. Any other discussion on these matters for personnel? No? Seeing none, Ms. Flowers, would you take the roll call?
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the curriculum and instruction items B1 through B7?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Second,
Second.
that was Mr. Rock. Yes. Thank you. Any discussion? No. Seeing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll call.
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, I'd like to have a motion to approve the finance items C, special services items 1 through 5, and business office items 1 through 33.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Is there any discussion on these items? No? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll call.
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and may I have a motion to approve the HIB report item D and miscellaneous revised 2022-2023 district calendar item E?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rock. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll call.
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much to my board colleagues. Next up, we have petitions and hearings of citizens, agenda or non-agenda items that you wish to discuss. Again, you all have 3 minutes to speak. Please approach the lectern at this time and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Tony Edelstein, 50 Davy Drive. I teach at the high school, and I'm here in emphatic support of my colleague Robin Sweeney, who's been subjected to an unwarranted, brutal, and slanderous attack by 2 parents, one of whom doesn't even have a child in Robin's class. The charge of racism launched at Robin is repugnant and disgusting. For the past 13 years, I've had the privilege to co-teach sections of US history with Robin. As such, no one in the school, and certainly no one in this community, knows Robin's teaching prowess, her relationships with students, or her heart better than I do. Every day I witness how she affirms and empowers each student, but particularly students of color. Robin tells students she doesn't use a textbook because textbooks don't give a full accounting of the racial history of this country. Robin continually imparts the message that systemic racism, including how history is often taught in schools, has existed from the moment Europeans came to these shores. In recent years, Robin has shown a talk by the Nigerian novelist Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie entitled The Danger of a Single Story. Robin's purpose is to tell her students that they will be learning history that's inclusive of people and voices that have traditionally been ignored, which brings me to this untaught lesson for which she's been vilified. The student who told her father about this upcoming lesson was apparently upset by the name of a video Robin intended to show. She saw the title, How to Pick Cotton, and jumped to an erroneous conclusion. The title's a misnomer. It's not a lesson in picking cotton. Instead, it's an interview with an elderly Black sharecropper about his experience picking cotton all his life. Robin's intention was to demonstrate the unimaginable hardship of picking cotton. As part of the lesson, Robin would give each student a piece of raw cotton so they can understand how labor-intensive it was to remove the seeds by hand. The point is for students to understand that cotton wasn't profitable and that slavery couldn't be sustained until the invention of the cotton gin, which caused cotton to become extremely profitable and resulted in the exponential growth of slavery. But Robin couldn't teach any of this because one student misunderstood what the lesson would be about. And her father, instead of asking Robin about the substance and intent of the lesson, launched an ad hominem attack on Robin's character and intelligence. Did that student also tell her father how Robin's classroom is decorated, about the large Black Lives Matter flag, about the posters of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Angela Davis, Muhammad Ali, Tupac Shakur, B.B. King, Louis Armstrong, Jimi Hendrix, Bob Marley, and the Haitian hero Toussaint Louverture? Dr. Schoen, members of the board, I invite you into Robin's classroom to decide for yourself whether Robin is a racist. One of the parents attacking Robin, I'm almost done, is worried her child will have Robin as a teacher next year because she believes her child won't be safe in Robin's classroom. To that parent, I say, you should hope your child has Robin next year. Your child will feel valued, recognized, and uplifted. This character assassination is baseless, and Robin deserves a public apology from the parents who have launched it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jason Jackson, 25 Westview Road, also a teacher here at the high school. Want to start by just publicly thanking Dr. Schoen for just the past few weeks following up, doing what she said she would do, and just her candor and openness when we've had discussions. One thing that we surely and truly agreed on is that there are some phenomenal teachers here in this district. And I know in the past 2 weeks, teachers have reached out to me, not only from the high school, but in other schools here in the district, just lending support and wanting to be proactive in just helping us move forward. One teacher who, in certain content areas, there's not a lot of wiggle room to be able to go into a lot of the updated or shared curriculums that we should have implemented. I'm not sure exactly which ones are or aren't, and that's something that I have to do a little bit more research on. But just in looking over the past years, I guess in '94, the Holocaust curriculum was created. The core mission of New Jersey Commission of Holocaust Education to promote education in the state of New Jersey. We encourage students to consider the importance of the responsibility of helping to create a more humane world and to consider the roles of the perpetrator, victim, bystander, and historical bystander in historical and contemporary events. And they have the Holocaust and Genocide, the Betrayal of Humanity, about 587 pages, which I obviously didn't get to read through, but just a lot of information. 2019, 2020, LGBTQ plus, New Jersey became the second state to sign the LGBTQ plus inclusive curriculum bill into law, which is set to take effect during the 2020-2021 school year. As in California, New Jersey law requires teaching accurate representation of both people of gender and sexual minorities and people's disabilities. Unlike California, New Jersey law provides a finite guidance delegating the power to state's individual school boards to decide exactly what inclusion means to them. 2002 Amistad curriculum calls on New Jersey to incorporate African-American history into the social studies curriculum. This legislation has created the Amistad Commission, a 23-member body charged with ensuring African-American history contributions, experiences are adequately taught in the state's classroom. Goals to infuse the history of African-Americans into social studies curriculum in order to provide accurate, complete, and inclusive history, and to ensure that New Jersey teachers are equipped with effectively teaching revised social studies core curriculum content standards. And then in 2022, I think actually 2 board meetings ago, Governor Phil Murphy signed a legislation on Tuesday that makes the AAPI curriculum mandatory for K-12 schools to include Asian American and Pacific Islander history in their curriculum starting in 2022-2023 school year. The move makes New Jersey the second state in the nation to require curriculum change after Illinois. Governor Murphy said, by teaching students about the history and heritage of AAPI community, we can ensure that the diversity of our state is reflected in our curriculum and create a more tolerant and knowledgeable future for New Jersey. And I went through all of this, and I'm saying all of this because I don't want to say the blueprint is there, but the information is there. And we have some excellent teachers that want to be able to implement it. If you're teaching math, there's only a certain amount of time you have for it, but we have to figure out, obviously there's training that needs to be done, and we have to figure out how to move forward to make sure that not only are these things being taught and covered, but that they're being taught and covered with our educators first, so that we can continue to be more inclusive and provide what we need to provide for the students. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Good to see you.
You as well.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up everything that you did relative to curriculum. Mr. Mendez and the supervisors to whom she works very closely with have been diving into this for some time. And we were planning on having a curriculum presentation tonight, which is going to address all of this. It's scheduled for July, but I can tell you that the supervisors have done an amazing job. Much of which you're referring to is already incorporated. To what extent, I don't know exactly, but it is there when it needed to be there. We are meeting our mandates and will meet our mandates, but the July presentation of the curriculum committee will absolutely speak to everything that you're talking about now. And certainly Dr. Pollins will become more involved too, as far as the inclusivity is concerned, now that she has been approved as our director of DEAI.
Yes, July 18th, that meeting.
That meeting is it July 18th, Tanya?
Yes.
July 18th, we will be doing a presentation. If you're not here, you can certainly, view it live, but it will be an extensive PowerPoint presentation. It's my understanding it's an outstanding one that the supervisors put together. So we're almost there.
Thank you.
So July, my pleasure.
Hi, good evening. My name is Stacy LaFontaine. I'm at 16 Kensal Lane, and now your faces all look familiar. So thank you so much. I just want to say to Dr. Sean, thank you so much. Your follow-up, your leadership, in such a short time, you were able to make such a big difference, not only to my family with the words and being able to use this unfortunate, yet in a way fortunate, because it's a teachable moment for all of us. I know many have seen our board meetings because I too have had teachers within the district reach out to me. They see me at Redwood and tell me how can we help. And honestly, it gives me a lot of hope that we are allies, right? Listening to the gentleman talk about another teacher and we are all here trying to have a common goal that West Orange represents all of us. And if there are kinks in the curriculum and kinks in how teachers are trying to educate our children, we're going to work through it together. And Dr. Schoen, you gave me that by the conversation that you had, not only with my husband and I, but with my son directly. I appreciate your leadership, your appointee of, and I'm going to meet and speak with you after. Congratulations. But I just want to say thank you. And also, since I know that this is a live broadcast, just to say that, you know, with all the teachers that we appreciate all the work that you're doing. And I know it's not easy. As a reminder, I'm an educator myself. I'm a history major. I love history. And so it's just being sensitive, you know, and sometimes maybe someone may not be racist, but maybe have been insensitive, or maybe they could have handled the situation differently. You know, that we all, the adults and the children, have to learn and be okay with learning. And I think that's important for educators to remember, that just because we are the teachers and I'm a director doesn't mean that I don't have a lot still to learn. And sometimes it's okay. I learn from my students who are 3, 4, and 5 all the time. So I would hope that the teachers that are educating my children also are finding ways to continue to learn, continue to hear them and see them, and understand their history. All our history is different and we all have painful aspects of it, but just being sensitive when you are teaching history to the students that you're teaching it to. Dr. Sean, I can't thank you enough, and to the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Alan LaFontaine, 16 Kensal Lane. That was my beautiful wife that just spoke before me. And I didn't want to just reiterate what she had to say, but I felt that it was important that I show up and also address the board at this time as well. Special thanks goes to Dr. Schoen, but all the board for the consideration over the past 3 or 4 weeks and having a conversation that oftentimes is very difficult for the adults in the rooms to have. I think that part of the guiding light in the conversation over the 3 or 4 weeks was the fact that we were dealing with our children in particular. And I know the sensitivity to the board on you handling other people's children. And being a Black man in America, and I was having this conversation separately, my expectations weren't that high. You know, my ultimate goal was to have my son being able to voice his concern, speak truth to power, and that was the win. You know, my expectations were met. He spoke truth to power. He said his truth. And because of some of the style issues that we have, maybe my expectations weren't where they needed to be. But to be able to have a follow-up and create the first step, you know, my son is going to graduate tomorrow in a much better circumstance of being hopeful that we can create change. There isn't a guarantee, but that hope, and I know the educators here can especially resonate with this message, that's life right there, right? It's the hope. There isn't the guarantee that things are going to drastically change. And we have conversations that, you know, generations, we're talking about the same thing that I was speaking about when I was 18, and there's a frustration in that. And I'm speaking a little bit of my age, but that hope, and you guys were very purposeful and intentional on saying, these are the steps to have a conversation, get a little bit more comfortable and being uncomfortable, right? To address the problem, to say, I see what you're saying. I can still disagree with you, but ultimately, I first see that first step in seeing what you're saying. And I think it's a very powerful moment for me and my family think it's a powerful moment for the board. It's a powerful moment of the community, especially what's been going on for the past 2 years, whether it be, the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter movement, that as a community that we can have these conversations and being very intentional, taking the first step. So I thought it was important, not just to reiterate what my wife had said, but I wanted to make sure that from my perspective, I also thank Dr. Schoen and the board as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Robert Ifker, 12 Lakeview Drive. Some of my comments, I'm echoing what the young lady said a bit ago, that about sensitivity. I didn't plan on speaking tonight. I have no way of knowing whether a teacher is racist or not. That's a very serious charge. But we might all be able to agree that there is a lack of sensitivity, and I might say a lack of judgment, which brings me to my more important point, which is I heard the teacher, who I respect very much, saying that the teacher feels that she didn't need maybe I didn't hear it right, didn't need to teach from the textbook. I don't understand that. Is there a curriculum? Are there guidelines? Or is it kind of, we just sort of do the best we can based on what we think is best? That the incident itself is of the highest level of seriousness. But when we step back from that, you want to ask, what's going on here? Where do the teachers teach? What do they teach from? Who gets to decide what they're teaching? And do the parents have a say in that? So I would appreciate any kind of input on that. Thank you.
Please. Thank you for your comments. And I think they're probably comments that many other people in the community could possibly have, right? Sometimes we think just because we're educators, everybody knows what it is that we do, and everybody doesn't. All teachers and what they teach are guided by a curriculum, right? That curriculum is written by teachers. A textbook is a supplement to that curriculum, right? If you remember when we went to school, there used to be worksheets, right? We'd pull out our workbook and then there'd be worksheets. Those worksheets were supplement to a curriculum full of standards that needed to be met. So teachers are guided by a curriculum. It is their autonomy within the classroom that they choose how they're going to go about supplementing. Part of our curriculum includes supplemental materials, but our teachers are very good, right? And they're very creative, and they will pull on their expertise to supplement. While I'm not going to speak or address the high school piece at all, that was brought up this evening. It's done on my level here. Please know that they are guided. Our teachers are guided by a curriculum that is overseen by our supervisors. And ultimately, your last question was, how is it approved? It is approved by our Board of Education.
I appreciate that. Let me just follow up one thing. I think it was a student that brought this up to the parents. Yeah. So if the student had not done that, how would we have ever known that a teacher is going, I don't want to say off the curriculum, but what they're teaching as a supplement, as you'd say?
Well, we have 6,800 students in our district, right? We have a large staff, right, who are overseen by an awesome administrative staff in every building. But to tell you that we know exactly what's going on in every classroom every minute of the day would be a false statement, right? So our teachers, great advocates, and rather our students, great advocates to tell their parents, and they did, and that's fine. We would never, ever want students not to go home and say, hey, listen, something made me pause. But we don't know exactly what it is that's going on, but we safely move forward, right? Because while there may be some hiccups along the way, or things that are perceived out of context, as was explained, we can't say that individual situations where one may pause makes the matter pervasive in our classrooms. Does that make sense what I'm saying? We have supervisors, we have teachers, we have our administrators. We trust and applaud our teachers for what it is they do, their supervisors for their supervision. But are we perfect, and do we live in a perfect world? No. So there will be times that we'll have to own some of the things we do, or times where we'll have to answer to them. And that's the reason you have an elected group of board members that can trust in their administrators to do so. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
I may just speak to that last point that the gentleman raised.
As an
teacher
educator in the district,
and
absolutely.
as a history teacher. The first thing is that the proposed or intended lesson that I was addressing was in no way outside of the curriculum. The curriculum in U.S. history teaches the Industrial Revolution. It teaches the absolute importance of cotton to the economy of the United States and how that growth of cotton led to the horrific and exponential growth of slavery. So all of that is in the curriculum, and that was what this lesson was intended to teach. Furthermore, as far as where we get our materials. So a textbook, of course, as you said, is a resource. It is not the end all and the be all. I think that is part of the problem that has been with teaching history in our country, is that textbooks have been considered the gospel and have left out many of the voices that have built this country and been important to this country. So we get our sources from, we use primary sources, we use videos, we use other secondary sources. We use all types of materials, and individual teachers, have their styles and their preferences. And unless we are going to go to either scripted curriculum, where the teacher just simply opens up a book and reads word for word what's written in there, or we go to robotic teaching, there is absolutely going to be individual teaching. Teaching is both a science and an art. I think that, yes, you say, the gentleman says, how can we know what teachers are teaching? I think you have to have faith that our teachers are doing an outstanding job and teaching our children well, and using a variety of diverse resources that are expanding, and I'm speaking to history now, that are expanding students' understanding of history, taking into account the voices of people that have been marginalized throughout history. And it's a much more inclusive history that is being taught today, certainly at least in West Orange High School. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you speak for everyone, Mr. Edelstein, and all of our teachers and their commitment and their trust. Beautifully stated.
All right, and that concludes our public session. So thank you very much. Our next regular board meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m., July 18th, 2022. This meeting will be held right here in the West Orange High School Library Media Center. We will not be returning into executive session after the close of this meeting. There will be no further business discussed and no additional action will be taken. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rock. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is now adjourned.